Hey folks, a rational consumer here with a book review of The Fourth Wing. I'll start up front with a disclaimer that this is not kid friendly. I didn't give this disclaimer for Diablo 4, which I should have, but in general, I want this channel to be used for my kids, when they're a little bit older, to gauge whether or not a piece of media is worth their time to consume. And I would not recommend Fourth Wing until you're a little bit older because it is for more mature audiences. It is a fantasy romance novel, which is a genre that I have not read before. My wife is a big fan, and she recommended this one as a good place for me to get started. And bottom line up front, I did like it, and I would recommend it. My overall score is an 8 out of 10. So I'll get into the three components of the score, which is the quality, the experience, and the return of investment on your time. For quality, I'll give it a 3 out of 3. So the writing was totally great. No sort of quality issues took away from the story or the experience, which is really what I ding things for in this category. But in general, the writing felt totally fine. The pacing felt pretty good. I had issues with some of sort of the tensions or conflict cycles themselves, but I think they came at the appropriate times, and in general it felt pretty well paced. I never felt like I was bored or anything like that, and again, it didn't suffer, in my opinion, from any significant quality issues. For the experience, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3 here. It loses 1 point mainly, I think, because I felt robbed of any descriptions of the dragons or even some of the setting, the world, which was interesting to me. And there is some time spent there, but there's much more time spent describing the physical appearance of the humans, of the characters. Lots of large biceps and chiseled abs and everything, which that might just be something about the genre that doesn't click well for me. So I have no idea if there's more of this in The Fourth Wing than there are in comparable novels, but in general, I found myself getting frustrated at some of the page space dedicated to the physical appearance, where some of the dragons or other really interesting things that I wanted to hear more about and I wanted to experience more of, I felt were a little bit lacking. And then, as I kind of mentioned in the quality section, some of the specific conflicts that come up I felt were a little bit contrived or one-dimensional. There's particularly one antagonist who doesn't seem very believable necessarily to me, but he was ancillary enough that it didn't dramatically detract from the experience, but it still was there kind of nagging me as I went throughout the story. So overall, it was a 2 out of 3 on the experience. And for the final component, the return on investment, how much are you going to get out of spending your time? I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3 there as well. Again, some of I think there's an entire chapter or two that are basically sex scenes, and those I mostly just skimmed through. So it wasn't a short book. I think it's around 450 pages. But in general, the story and the world itself particularly were very interesting, and I felt like it was worth my time. The exception being that I felt like it could have been more fleshed out with some of those more interesting aspects, like the world or like the dragons, in place of some of the romance, but that might just be me being new to the genre, and if you're already in love with that genre, I imagine that there would be more return on the investment of your time here. And if you are a fan of that genre and you've read this book and you have other thoughts, I'd love to hear those in the comments. Or if you've read the book and you don't think it's worth your time, would love to discuss that with you as well. So yeah, I realized I didn't really talk about what I did enjoy about The Fourth Wing, or why I gave it a 2 out of 3 instead of a 1 or a 0 out of 3 for the experience. So I just wanted to add, the setting is really cool. The dragons are amazing, obviously. Dragons are always cool, but this iteration of dragons I think is really cool, and it's a very soft magic system, but there's still a lot of room for some cool stuff, and it felt very exciting anytime anything with dragons or magic would come up. And there are some tense and epic battle scenes as well. So wanted to actually throw that in there because I did enjoy it ultimately, and I would recommend it, and I wanted to describe why. So thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.